It doesn't mean that you need to shut up.
Mhm.
All right. So there are a few ways to engage the rest of the course, and they recommend we are going the route of the local installation of DBT core with the command line interface, as you mentioned earlier, Jagdish. And then let's move on. Set up a practice project. So you should use this as a dedicated project for training rather than try to replicate this in your company's primary project. The Git repository, we recommend BigQuery because they have a generous free tier, and the GitHub repository because of how simple it is to get started. If you already completed the DBT fundamentals course, you can advance through the next three sessions. Create a customer order, blah blah blah. Create a project with DBT Cloud for the connection to the warehouse. So set up a DBT Cloud connecting to GitHub. Set up DBT Cloud. The second video here, we don't have that. Now that you have fully set up the project, we're going to follow the approach for the training data. And there's three DBT Cloud. So required permission. So it's interesting. They seem to be here pushing the cloud. As I mentioned to you, we spoke about this, right? So
Yeah, because they want to make money.
yeah. So so they have a thing here, a separate page
And that's
here.
what we followed.
Yeah. And so this is how you install. But this wasn't totally complete. I think I like the fact that we did something with what? We had a technology.
Install DBT on Windows 10.
Yeah, I want to capture some of that in this. That's really where I'm being stupid. Um, let me see. I know I had put this somewhere.
I think it's in your reading list.
I think I may have removed it from the reading list. That's the thing.
Okay.
But I know I shared it with you the on I shared it with you on OneNote. Did I not?
I've shared that with you in the chat.
Right. But I think I have it here. So this is a good this is a good thing here. And I think you gotta make sure everything is consistent. And I think what was the biggest thing that this guy said here? What was the big issue? This guy claims to be an engineer or something like that. If he had
The big issue was to install MS Scroll Up,
mm-hmm.
MS
Yes,
Build tool.
yes. So this may be missing from your machine, and this is critical for DBT to run. And that was really what the issue was. And all your things have to be on a consistent version. You may have to update your DBT, update your pip, update your packages. So I think I wanted to just to cover that because that's the pain points. So this wasn't quite this can actually be edited, you know. This can be edited. I say if we edit this page, So they allow, so you have to sign into GitHub. So I don't know. Let me sign in. Does it allow me? So they sent this to my Yahoo. So I am looking at this tab here, Jagdish, and they want to verify the device for the GitHub. So you need to fork this repository to propose. So even though they say edit, apparently they have it canned, which is good. It's kind of good that they have it canned because they give the impression that the page can be edited, but they have this under docs, and it seems as if it's tight. It's even tied to GitHub, so they're probably utilizing stuff that's free, which is reasonable. At the end of the day, yeah, this is DBT version. Brew works for Apple, so chances are pip install is probably what you need, and pip upgrade you may need to upgrade. And then also the packages also need to be upgraded. Um, the packages here. What's a package? And they have packages. They have D labs. That was pretty cool too. Doing the packages here was pretty good for setup. And then you also have the adapters. The adapters are also critical. So you have the adapters for which adapters do we have? Postgres, you know, um, they have adapter specific configurations, right? They don't have one, but most of these are probably like online stuff. But we also want the adapters. We have profiles, YAML, set up profiles, which links to your respective sources of data sources. Um, they have the Microsoft server, right? So this is the Microsoft server um, setup and the Microsoft server adapter. So your pip install if you're doing SQL Server. So this was pretty cool too. The project stuff is project configs, the DBT project YAML, setting that up with the different things. That's also a cool thing. DBT project here, getting started page is also critical. All right. So having said all of that, let's resume back the course. Come back to the resumption of the
In
course.
the last video, we worked on
So we
centralizing
were
our
there.
transformations,
So we
and we
did all
built
of
them
that.
into stages.
We did all of this already. And now we talk about, so we have installed core, GitHub, warehouse, setting up that, loading your training data, and let's go creating customer. So let's see if set up the practice project, create a model, make sure you can successfully execute the model, the specific model with the dash M. Are you following, Jagdish? And then they talk
Yes,
about
Calvin.
making your first commit. So version control comes into play here. I guess you commit locally. right? You can commit
Mhm.
locally and set up your own remote repository.
I need to create a
Mm,
GitHub account.
well, you don't need a GitHub because yeah, you can create one for yourself. I mean, right now we're using
Bitbucket.
Bitbucket, so it's the same thing roughly, slight differences. So I guess the objective here is that they're saying, how would we refactor this code, And I'm thinking that we'll watch what they do group by one, order by that, X order, and order that. There's outer joins, there's some translations going on here. So we'll look at the different components that we see here. There's a with statement here, so there's some CTE activity. They have the comma here, they have another one here, and then they have a select statement. So there's no comma after this table expression. Is that correct? And
Yeah,
so the proposal from what we have seen so far is that we should actually convert this also into a CTE
CT.
and then select from the final. That's their best practice. So we can look at it and we can see some stuff. And the objective here is to simplify, to detangle or to separate the stuff to get this nice and clean. And then one of the things you want to start with, what's fundamental or rudimentary? You know the word rudiment? You know rudiment,
No,
Jagdish?
no, I don't know that.
Okay. All right. Let me clean up.
Did you
Let me
say
clean up.
root,
Rudiment,
root
yeah. Rudimentary. So elementary, rudimentary, you know, it doesn't mean to be rude.
limited to basic principles?
Yes. Rudiment is fundamental or basic.
Undeveloped or
Yes.
basic form.
So I look at the etymology website here. Early training, first experience, beginning, first principle. So a lot of times you would say would go from unlearn, untrain, see rude. So rude means you're unlearned or you're untrained. So if I say you're rude, you might think it's a negative thing. But what am I actually saying? That you need finishing. They had a thing they call finishing school. Did you know that?
Finishing school.
Yes, they used to send in Europe. I don't know if it's going to show up here. The act of bringing to completion. So they would send, like, especially the women, girls would be sent to finish in school. And that's where she would be cultured. They would finish her. So you would go to finish in school. They had, you know, it's quite interesting. That's all I would
Give me
say.
1 second, Kelvin. हेलो ठीक है वो साइड में होगी
You're
जहाँ पर
being
गाड़ी
you're
का
being recorded, Jagdish. You could mute.
Give me 1 second. I'm back.
Yeah, I'm just even now questioning this figure here. Okay, so I was telling you about finishing school. It's a school for young women that focuses on teaching social graces, upper class cultural rights as a preparation for entry into society. See, if you remember when we spoke about happiness
Hmm.
manifesto,
Hmm.
we said community over society.
Society.
Yeah, this society thing, it's quite interesting. Society, you see, dominant culture. You know, so society, but society is a different sense of the word society. But in my mind, in society, people tend to be showboating and competing with each other. You know, it's
Hmm.
about honor, recognition, blah blah blah. Whereas community is more about welfare, caring. You know, being compassionate, being whatever, considerate, being communicative, which is basically another word of saying sharing. All right, going back to the tab though. So the thing about scripts and those things, you see, Jagdish, this is supposed to be like Hindi or like English. You're supposed to be able to read this if you're a programmer. You're supposed to kind of look at it. It's supposed to mean, just like when you speak in Hindi, it means nothing to me because I don't know the language as much. You understand? I don't have any experience with it, but it means everything to you. This should mean something to you when you see it. You should be able to say, okay, they're doing some CTE stuff. There's some organization. What the DBT people are saying is that you could do more to clean this up to make it more malleable or shapeable. And we were looking at the word rude, which means that you unlearned. That there's there's scope for develop. There's opportunity to improve, right? So if I say you're rude or you're ruddy, it just means that you're unpolished or you're not as you're not complete. So
Hmm.
I could say you're complete in Hindi or more complete in Hindi than you are in say English. Is that reasonable? Or you're more
Yes.
complete in Indian culture than you're probably in American culture or
Hmm.
Canadian culture or African culture. You know, I mean, I have no clue. Africa probably have different things. I realize that already. Caribbean islands, you have different cultures across the island. You know, people operate, administer socially. They socialize different. So we look at this. This is the example here. Okay. So we see it. We see what we're trying to clean up or refactor. So
Hello,
here is
everyone,
Pat.
and welcome to the DBT Labs Refactoring course, Part 2. My name is Pat Kearns, and I'll be leading you through this practice section, following the guidelines set out by Christine in Part 1. In this part, we will provide you with a new query to practice refactoring. This query will come from the same data sources, but will contain slightly different set of problems. This will give you a chance to use your newfound knowledge on refactoring to untangle the messy SQL. This practice section is meant to be authentic and challenging. You will have to wrestle with the code and make some decisions. To get the most out of this practice, first try implementing Christine's refactoring process completely on your own. Once you have attempted the refactor on your own, I will show you how I would refactor the query myself. That way you can compare the process to mine. We will inevitably have differences in our final code, but use my walkthrough videos to support your learning. So let's get into it.
All right, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so welcome. Let's continue.
Hi there. My name is Pat. I'm a senior analytics engineer at DBT Labs, and I'm here to talk to you about migrating an existing SQL query and building a DBT model from that as you refactor the code. Generally, you will, at some point in your career, you'll get sent a SQL query, something crazy that has inconsistent formatting, lots of nested queries, lots of table references with single letter aliases, things like that. So you might just be given a file, or you might be fully transferring from one old legacy system to some new database or warehouse. But anyways, you'll get a query like this, and you will want to put it into a well-formatted syntax, modularize the code, refactor it so it'll be easier to understand. So these are the general steps that you're going to go through. We will be migrating the code over into dbt Cloud. You'll want to implement sources using some Ginger syntax that allows you to reference different views or tables. You're going to want to choose a refactoring strategy. So that is whether you are refactoring inline or alongside. And then there's a bunch of cosmetic cleanups and CTE groupings. So basically making everything lowercase and having consistent indenting and using CTEs as well. The next step is a big one, but it's breaking it out into staging models, intermediate models, and a final model, and really just shoring up your model so that it looks super clean and readable. And then the last bit is auditing. So the first step is migrating code. So basically you're going to copy paste whatever code is that you got, and you will drop it into a file, or you can create a new file, which I've done here. So I just created this folder legacy, and then add new file, and then paste it in. And you get, the first thing you want to do is preview the data and make sure that it actually runs. We've already done that, but yep. So then that's it. You could leave it like this technically, but we want to improve upon it. But this should be exactly as it was previously.
Okay, Jagdish. I'm just trying to log in over here. That's why. So here he shows the code again. Exemplar means perfect example, as opposed to saying example. They say exemplar instead of saying EG. I tried to use it somewhat, but I'm kind of still dicey on whether or not I will use it. If
I
that makes
see.
sense. Yeah, but it literally means perfect example. That's the intent, to mean perfect example. So nothing really strange about it. Try to see if this thing. Okay, this thing will work because it's still saying I've not signed in yet. No, I was trying to sign in early to my thing here. You see, I get up on the same wavelength even though the time has shifted. I was telling these people that it don't really move me. What I find happen with the company, the I have to restart this machine because But I really want to tell you what's on my mind more than anything else, Jagdish, is the fact that these guys want me to give them $2,000 for health insurance for 1 month. I'm saying no. Something is saying find a better solution. Okay. Talking to your own. You know? All right. So they're saying create a folder called legacy. Within the legacy folder, create a folder called customer orders. Or create a file, I should say. And look at how they write their steps. It's good language to learn if you can learn anything from that, or you can critique it. Because if you have to write instructions, technical writing, how would you write it, right?
Yep.
Following query in the customer orders, right? So you create a file, you paste that in there, and this wouldn't work for us per se, because this is not our, unless you get access to their database or whatever. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then conduct a DBT run.
Customer orders to
Hmm.
ensure your morals
Hmm.
is built in the warehouse.
So one of the first things, the fundamental thing, first you establish your template or whatever, your working area. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Mm.
That's reasonable. Just bear man, just logging in quickly over here. Like you, I have to log in too, right?
Yeah.
Um, see, I'm not afraid Jack needs to step out. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying I've done that most of my life.
Mm.
So paste it in there. So they say create a factor file. So you have the legacy file. So that's always your reference. So that's your reference. Then they're saying paste it again in here, and this is where you're gonna do your work. FCT is for factor.
So that the legacy code will not be impacted.
Mm-hmm. Understand? So they're saying that your development schema, i.e. DBT currents that customer in the warehouse, you should see your model under your development schema, right? DBT currents. I'm not sure. Oh, I guess this is him talking from within their area, their development environment. And they're saying you create a model called Marts. So you have one called Legacy, you have Marts. And then within March. So organization is very important. Would you agree?
Yep.
So so the first thing is that you create folders. So you need to create folders. Create folders. And the first folder you create was what? A legacy? Create
Yeah,
model
legacy fault.
model subdirectories. All right. And then they're basically saying first one you're going to create is
The legacy,
legacy. Okay. And the second one you're going to create is
the fact.
March. March.
Okay.
You create one called March and you create one. And notice that they're using what? For these folder names there. The other thing with lowercase. So you gotta pay it
Yeah.
so lowercase, lowercase, delimited, and the preferred, delimiter is underscore. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm putting this in the notes to capture. Right now, so they're saying that, and then you basically will create a file, create SQL, create dot SQL with original model, and then here you create FCT with original original SQL. All right, now so you paste it in there. So this is the query that you're gonna paste. Now same query. Hmm? Same
Yeah.
is same thing, nothing different. You say anything different here?
No, they have just pasted it twice.
But the way they write it, they say paste the following query. They should have said paste the same shit. Anyway, can't bother. Conduct a DBT run to ensure the model is built in the warehouse. You should see the model, blah blah blah, in your project in your root, blah blah blah. And your packages, paste the following package. So we did this, right? They put point zero, point four. Is that the one that we had? Yeah, point zero.
I think
That's
we
the
have
one.
point
Yeah.
two.
I put no on point zero. No, two is for your project. The package is point four, 0.4,
Oh, I
0.4.0.
see. Okay.
But I also added the utils, which is 0.7.3. Because there was another package. They didn't tell you about that one. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I just installed the two of them. The two of them working now, so that's all I care. Once it working, I'm happy. Then they say run dbt depths command line and a new compare query. And so this is the query. So this is a compare query SQL file. So within the analysis folder, so we didn't get quite into analysis. So there's an analysis folder. So they're basically saying that you would create something in the analysis folder, which is cool. I think that's cool. I can work with that. Let me close this down for now. So you do that and then um hit the preview button. I don't know if we have a preview button. You will see one output line saying 100% match. So this is basically saying set the old relation, set the DBT, ETL, extract, transform, load. Because you see, what they're basically saying is that you go in from set that and then audit helper compare and you give it the parameters. Old A relation, so it's a A and a B relationship, and the primary key. What keys the two? I don't know if you suppose it was more than one key that was primary. Suppose you had, you know what I mean? Suppose you had multiple keys. How would this work?
Hmm.
What's the syntax? What's the full syntax for this function here, or this procedure? Does that make sense? Or
Yeah,
this
that
macro?
makes sense. So it's a A and B comparison,
And then what's
legacy and fact comparison.
okay, cool. And what's interesting here is that this is Ginger.
This
Mm,
parentheses.
mhm. So what
Oh
this,
no,
yeah,
curly braces.
yeah, I don't know if they could have probably dropped this down here. See,
Mm,
so what they're basically doing is that they're setting up variables here with the ref statement. This is a ref statement here. So it's telling it that this is the model, hence the sequels would be implied. The dot sequels are implied here. Even though, you know what I mean? So it knows that this reference, this model and that model, and let's compare A to B. And you will see one line showing 100% because they're exactly the same. So you see the regression stuff, you can do it
mm,
within that. A lot of what we were doing, we could regress it and get a relationship table
mm.
inside DBT. Isn't that interesting? It's
Yeah,
just
it
that you
is.
kind of,
The
yeah, because we write our own, which I don't mind still. I don't mind the tools that we have because they're specialized. So don't get it twisted. It's just that it's good to know what your alternatives are. Does that make sense?
that's it does.
So you could probably generate something. You could probably come up with a little thing that would create this statement for you. In it, have you ever seen how I've created like Excel generators that just create code instead of me having to write the code? You could probably do a
Excel.
similar. Go ahead.
So you okay? So are you talking about VBE editor?
Yeah, it's like this. Like for argument here, this is something in the this is something that's written where you telling it what the customer is, you're telling it what that is. So these are parameters. You agree?
Yeah.
So you this could have been a function or a macro that you call the macro with the parameters and the key. See? And you basically would say it would all of this text here could have been written as a macro, and then you basically you wouldn't care about
Provide
anything.
the
You just provide
key
one, two, three.
and the
So when I
keys
look
as
at,
well
yeah, right. When I look at this,
for
I'm
the inner
seeing,
join.
right. I'm seeing, well, yeah, this is for the inner giant, but I'm seeing three inputs:
Mm,
input A, B, and C. Model A, model B, and the key,
mm.
and the primary key to join. Is that making sense or not making sense to
Yeah,
you?
no, that makes sense, Calvin.
So why am I saying this to you? Because I'm saying to you, what you can think about is how you would think solutions going forward. You know, so yeah, Ming is up, Ben is on. I don't know if Ben is really. Tyler is on. So yeah, so when all is said and done, how will you? Because exactly the same DBT secret. Does it have any unintended consequences causing a drift between the old and new versions? So there you go. So you see, as I said, you could think modular. Does that make sense? So even though
Mm,
they're saying this, they're doing this for that, then I could say I could probably come up with a macro and just have this query SQL call that macro instead of having to write all of this. And then I would just say compare. See, this is saying compare queries, but I'd have a compare models. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
what
that
they're
makes
basically saying is that there's something hit preview button. So I'm not sure what the preview button, but we are command line. So how would we actually preview that? You get what I'm saying? Do we have to run something to see it? Does it become a view? Who knows? Those are questions, reasonable questions. So we run that within the add that, blah, 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 and let's say hit preview. But we don't have a preview, but I'm just repeating myself. All
So
right,
the
let's see
next
what.
step is implementing sources and then choosing a refactoring
So
strategy.
implementing sources.
I actually have already decided what my refactoring strategy is. I'm going to refactor alongside, meaning I'm going to create a brand new model and do the refactoring. So I've actually swapped these two steps. So I will show you what that looks like. Also, I'm going to jump around between dbt Cloud and GitHub because sometimes it's easier to just see the changes in GitHub, but I'll try and pop back and forth a little bit. Okay, so if you committed your first commit, you would see you migrated the original query over. And if you submit that, you'll be good to go there. The next thing I did is set up an audit helper package, which will allow me to, which is basically this. So basically, if you go into packages.yaml, you can add packages. And one of the packages that we have from DBT Labs is the audit helper. You can add that in as a package, and then you can use any of the macros that are inside of it. And one of them is, sorry, in models, no, sorry, I put this in the analysis. So basically there's a compare queries macro. So it'll be audit helper dot compare relations, sorry, compare relations. So there is a audit helper package called compare relations, and this will allow you to compare two different models that you have. So I created that original one called customer orders, and then I'm going to
This is
create an
not
output
clear, is
one
it?
that is like the
No,
finalized version of
it's a
that, and
little
that'll be called
blurry.
fact customer
It's
orders.
not
So at
me,
any
it's
point
them.
after I've
Huh?
created those
It's
Yeah.
not me, it's them.
two, if I just hit run here or preview data,
You
it
know.
will show whether those, the output from those match. And I'll show you. So I have this legacy customer orders file in my Marts folder. I'm going to create the fact customer orders file, which at the beginning will look exactly like the original. So here I just created fact customer orders and pasted in the exact same SQL as before. So now that I have both of those in there, I can run this and you'll see it will say 100% match. So basically, the output of this will just be rows that are distinct. And what it's looking at is the primary key of both of those tables, which is order ID, and then whether or not, like how many rows are in each different relation. So one relation is the original query, the second relation B is the new fact table, and you'll see in A is true, in B is true, the count is a 99, which is 100% of all the rows. If you did make a change to this and it changed something and made it different, then you would see in A 50 rows, in B 49 rows, and therefore like it doesn't match up 100%. So it's nice to add this in at the beginning. That way you can continue to make changes to your fact customer orders throughout this process. And just whenever you make some change that maybe you're not sure about, or you're doing like a window function and you want to check to make sure that what you wrote is actually the same, you can do dbt run all your models and then come in here and then press preview data and it output hopefully 100%. And if not, then you know that what you wrote is different and you need to go back in and edit it. So the next thing is implementing sources. But one of the things that I typically do upfront and also all the time, because a lot of times you don't notice it maybe until you're really digging into the code, is like lowercasing and doing just like a very quick cosmetic cleanup. I find it's easier to refactor if things are consistent and they have indentation. So I'll usually do that first or as soon as I can. So the next thing that I did is transform to lowercase and add some consistent formatting. So basically we changed this block to be that block. Whenever we have new CTEs, we want to indent the contents of those, indent all of the column names, etc. So I'm not really doing any breaking out of nested subqueries or anything like that right now. I'm literally just adding some spacing and lowercasing everything. I find it's really hard to read when things alternate between like uppercase and lowercase. I just take care of all that all at once. The next thing on there is
Are
implementing
you hearing
sources.
that,
The first thing
Jagdish?
that you want to do there is you're
I
going to
see that,
add
and in
YAML
fact, I was
files
about to
into
talk to
staging.
you about
I'll
it
show you what that
because
looks like. Under your
now everything
staging
is in
subfolder,
lowercase.
you
You
will
know that
add
Yes.
model
we
files for
we
whichever
have
ones
select
are
command,
referenced in
where
your
clause,
original
and all
query.
that,
So
all special keyword of SQL Server. So Microsoft style is to write those in uppercase.
Python is lowercase. But
Hmm.
in this case, I just want to readability is probably what they're trumping the whole argument with. To say if you're gonna
making
read
it as a lowercase.
lowercase, just make it lowercase and done. So
Hmm.
601 have the one the other. Um, I mean, it makes me want to do some things. I mean, I have some refactoring to do on the right hand side here, and I have some refactoring that we can do. The most important thing is that we're on the same page, so we have less conflicts going forward. You see, you have your mind, I have my mind, your wife has her mind. So I always can talk to people about their marriage, and I always, people get jumpy when you say that. But you know me already, and I would just say that you have to have the marriage becomes an entity.
True.
So there are three people in the marriage. It's you, your wife, and the marriage. So if you had two people feeding, they always say why our marriage is more expensive because you have to feed the marriage too. The marriage now sits at the table.
Hmm.
And so whenever you have companies, unions, groups, the group now becomes an entity of its own. And it has to work as one to be truly effective. If not, you understand? It has its own DNA, it has its own signature. Because the group is no longer Jagdish. The group is not Snow. So if Snow is trying to impose Snow on you, what I'm trying to say is this with the happiness manifesto is that we are seeking better ways. That's the agile
Hmm.
manifesto. We're seeking better ways of working. We're seeking better ways of happiness. So most of your life, you work. A lot of people leaving their jobs because they're not happy. And they want to be happy at work. So my wife went out and she realized, wait, I need to be this focus up for happiness or people to enjoy what they're doing. Because if you're not enjoying what you're doing, so do it in an enjoyable way. So part of what we're saying, or what they're saying, or I would say what we should be saying, is that if it's bullshit, let's stop it. Because bullshit is not happiness. It's as simple as that. Stop the fuckery. Stop writing things just any which way you feel like writing it. You don't get up and put on your pants backwards and walk out on the street, do you? So
No.
stop doing the work like you're putting on your clothes backwards or inside out. Sometimes I put on my shirt and it's the wrong way. And I go out on the street and people don't even tell me, dude, you have on your shirt the wrong way. Probably look like a style. Who knows what it looks like to them? Sometimes it's very clear.
I
Sometimes
did
the
that.
color,
I did that
yeah,
yesterday
yeah,
when I went to gym.
yeah,
I
your mind,
didn't realize.
right. So I'm just saying that. So I'm just saying that, yeah,
Yeah. So let's finish this one, Calvin, and then we can reconnect after that.
yeah. Let's finish this one because getting off into work.
In the original query, we had Jaffle Shop customers, we have Stripe payments, and then we have Jaffle Shop. So basically, you want to break those out using
So you
DBT syntax.
identify
So we have
identify your
Jaffle Shop.
sources.
You're going to build the sources for
So the
customer
next
and
thing,
orders.
Is
Then you're
sources.
going to build
mhm.
Stripe, raw, and payment.
So this is where we probably get
And
caught
then
up.
the next thing you want
Document
to do is
your
swap out
sources.
those sources in
Hmm.
your new modified query. So anywhere where raw.jaffleshop.orders, where the raw reference was referenced, instead you're going to switch it to dbt source reference. You'll use the source macro. If you don't know, if you type under source and hit enter, it'll bring that in for you. So you can use that. There we go. There we go. So yeah, anywhere in there where
So
we
they have
had a raw
keystrokes to
reference,
make it
we're
easier to
gonna instead
document.
switch it to a source reference.
Hmm.
And whatever alias we were using before, we're just gonna keep it at, and that way we can make these changes step by step. So even though This is like a as C, like a single letter alias, which is definitely not preferred. We're going to keep it there for right now, just so that we don't have to go through all of these columns where it is referenced that way. And that way we can keep the changes to a minimal subsection, rerun dbt run, and then use the audit helper package to test. And the reason why this is particularly problematic is because some of these columns are not fully qualified, meaning they don't have C.order or orders.order date. So at the moment, we're not exactly sure whether they come from customers or from orders. To eliminate some of the guesswork, you try to keep your changes as minimal as possible. Okay.
Yeah.
See? So that was that. That one was pretty simple, and you could see what he's basically saying here. Because you
Mm-hmm.
won't get the DAG. You won't be able to get a DAG if you don't do that. See? Once
Yeah.
you establish your sources, then it will show you the DAG, the flow, the acyclic. So acyclic means not a cycle. So you're going from left to right. Does that make sense?
That makes
As a,
sense.
if it was cyclic, you would go around and come back to customer.
Hmm.
Acyclic mean you just go one direction. It's one way. It's not there's no loops here
Mm-hmm.
in transformation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you go from one state to another, and you may have things in between. This could go customers, and customers would go, whereas something else could go around
Relationship, basically.
lineage. It's more lineage than anything else, which is crazy. You can see
Mm.
what a family tree look like, because you could have different mothers or different fathers, or people have that in their family. So that's one of the primary things. You won't get the dogs properly without having your sources identified. You won't be able to see it. So it's not going to go into your logic and say, oh, this is Java Shop.
Right.
So next we have
Okay.
cosmetic cleanups and
So
CTE
if you
groupings.
want,
And then one of the first things we want to do is
we
put
can stop there, and we
Yeah,
can
just because the recording is also there, so we will stop it here and then start from this thing, refactoring query demo,
right,
CTE grouping and cosmetic cleanups.
right. So let me go back over here and stop the recording. Stop presenting and stop recording. So I give a little bit of a sniffle.